in the name of God, who really sees us, who really loves us, and really shows compassion on and heals us through other beloved people and creatures. Amen. So, this morning, I was thinking about, and obviously thought about for a few days, after my retreat, I came home and I watched a movie on Netflix called Remarkably Bright Creatures. Isn't it wonderful? Oh my gosh. It stars Sally Field as an elderly woman named Tova. And some of you undoubtedly have read the book before the movie ever came out. And I consider it such a sweet movie because it isn't the usual action-packed Marvel Comics type of loud and fast movie that normally comes out. And believe me, I've seen the Marvel series, I like them, but this was not that kind of movie. In some ways, it reminded me of A Man Called Ove, in that it explores how people cope with outliving loved ones and facing the isolation that often accompanies it. Remarkably Bright Creatures tells the story of a simple woman who has outlived both her husband and her son. She's carrying deep grief, and particularly over the fact that she's now no longer a wife or a mother. And she's now seriously considering selling her absolutely drop-dead gorgeous log home on the water on the West Coast. Oh my gosh, I loved it. And the reason is her husband, before he died, signed her up for an assisted living place so that he wouldn't worry about her after his possible death. I hesitate to say too much because I highly recommend you see the movie. If you have Netflix, it's just wonderful. But the reason why I began this sermon with a movie is that it reminded me of something really important. No matter how good people might look on the outside, it ain't necessarily so, as the song goes. Many are quietly carrying profound burdens on the inside. Some are struggling with grief, addiction, regret, loneliness, a lack of purpose, or wounds that they rarely, if ever, discuss in polite society. You see this in the lead character, Tova. She doesn't open up to the people in her community about the depth of her grief. She's part of a knitting group, but its members kind of get on her nerves. Because frankly, they're just much more interested in gossip than knitting. But she also volunteers at an aquarium, a little local tiny aquarium, where she finds a sense of purpose, cleaning the tanks and the floors each night. More importantly, she develops an unusual friendship through a mostly one-sided conversation with an octopus named Marcellus. And trust me, Marcellus plays a very big role in this movie. You just have to see it. As I read today's gospel, I found myself thinking about Tova. Because Jesus was keenly aware that many people carry heavy burdens and suffer in silence. In fact, his compassion was the driving force behind his ministry. God so loved the world that he sent Jesus to begin a revolution of care, mercy, and compassion for a hurting humanity. In today's gospel, Jesus says to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few." And he says this because he understands that healing really can't happen in isolation. People need people. And no, I'm not going to break out into song. They, us, we, all humanity need someone to remind us that we are, in fact, loved and that our lives actually really do matter. And most important, probably, that we are not alone. That's why I find it so tragic when some religious leaders distort Jesus's love into threats of hellfire and brimstone, portraying God as primarily punitive rather than compassionate. The gospel reveals something very different. It reveals a God who reaches out to humanity in love long before humanity ever reaches back, if ever. St. Paul writes, while we were still weak, Christ died for the ungodly. In other words, while humanity was still in the midst of being imperfect, of struggling, of being lonely or angry or confused, or perhaps not even interested in anything having to do with any faith at all, God loved us. Before any of that happened, God loved us first. And Paul would know. As you know, before his conversion, Paul arrested and persecuted the followers of Jesus. And yet, Christ chose him, of all people, to minister to this brand new little community of people who followed Jesus. To be an ambassador of love and grace to the very people he absolutely hated with a passion. And it is into this same harvest of great need that all disciples are sent, including the graduates we celebrate today, and as well as ourselves. So based on my own lifelong walk with Christ, the first thing I want to say to our graduates, and indeed to all of us, because we all need reminding from time to time, don't lose your sense of wonder. So important. The world is full of miracles. Don't allow the cynicism of the world, and it is out there in droves, babies. Don't allow worldly cynicism to steal your ability to see the miracles all around. In the midst of making a living, be sure you're also making a life. Material things come and go. Every time I go into a thrift shop, which isn't very often anymore, I have way too many things now, but every time I would go into a thrift shop, I would think this is the greatest recycling business of all. But even all that materialist stuff, even the almighty dollar has its limits, has a limited time. But the beauty of God's creation is priceless and limitless. To watch the morning light stream through a forest as wildlife awakens to a new day is a soul-refreshing experience. To stand by an ocean or lake and see the sunlight dance across the water like scattered diamonds, while tiny little sandpipers dart over towards the water and then go, oh, there's a water coming, dart on back at the same speed. To paddle a kayak across a river so still it looks like glass while birds greet the morning with their songs of praise. These are all every bit as important as earning a paycheck. These moments and countless others are freely given. They offer us a glimpse of the Creator's love and reminds us of the miracle of God's presence, God's gift of creation, and our responsibility to care for it. And finally, I do want to say something about faith. As we all know, when young people graduate from high school or college, there is often an assumption that faith will be set aside like a childhood possession replaced by more practical concerns such as careers and bills to pay and material success. Needless to say, I disagree. My faith in a power greater than me, and that's all it really has to be for you. Just know there is a power greater than this little human being and that little human being, right? And the rest of humanity, for that matter. A power I have personally come to know primarily through Jesus Christ and his Blessed Mother, has sustained me through some of the darkest and most impermanent moments. It has carried me when the bottom had seemed to fall completely out. And I believe that the material world is a gift from God, given for our enjoyment, balanced with wisdom, of course. Everything in this world, the good and the bad, is impermanent. Our favorite possessions, even our wonderful jobs, if we love them, all of our wonderful experiences, entertainers. Boy, I'm at that age now where all my favorite rock stars are dying off. Oh my gosh. And even many of the people we love, of course, are indeed impermanent. When they move away or die, as all things eventually do, our hearts will break. And this was one of the central messages of the Buddha. And Jesus taught a similar truth when he said, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." So if your ultimate treasure is found only in what is temporary, life is going to include a whole lot of suffering. But if your deepest treasure is rooted in what is eternal, then the love and presence of God and the love and spiritual presence of your loved ones will remain with you even when everything physical changes. Every morning I get up, especially in these last few weeks since my dog Daisy died, I get up, I go out, if I'm like going to church or whatever, and there's a red cardinal in the front yard. I haven't seen this many red cardinals before in a long time. And I can't help but think, okay, it's a little message. Maybe Daisy's with me in another way now, And that goes for any loved one, for that matter. So as we celebrate our graduates and also look toward the future for them and thinking about how it might all unfold for them all, I would like to offer a kind of poem, one that I hope will serve as a guide and a blessing in the days and months and years to come. It was written by a woman named Angie Sullins, whom I love to read. She's on Facebook. And to hear these words, I want you to all imagine Jesus, the eternal Christ, speaking personally to each one of you. So here goes. I never asked you to carry the commandments like a sack of stones, to straighten your spine into someone else's idea of holy. I asked you to lean in, to press your ear to the tender heartbeat of the world, to hear me pulsing in the cry of the child, the whisper of the wind, the laughter between two lovers who were never supposed to love. Your soul's salvation was never about getting it right. It was never about the perfect prayer, the clean hands, the pure thoughts. Beloved, it was always about how your heart broke open for someone else. The rule is love. The only rule is love. And if the laws you have been taught do not sing with mercy, if they crush the soft bloom of another's becoming, then break them. Break them like I broke the Sabbath, like I broke the silence to lift the woman from the dust, to touch the leper, to dine with the forgotten. Break them. Break them like bread. Do you not see? Every time you choose love, and I might add beauty, wonder, and awe, especially over correctness, compassion over fear, you are already saved. Not in some distant heaven, but now, as your tears fall for another's pain. Now, as you laugh at your own clumsy devotion, I am not keeping score. I am tracing the curve of your soul like a mother studies her child's face. I'm sitting beside you in the mess, in the beauty, in the breaking, in the becoming, and I am whispering, you are mine. You are mine. You are mine. Amen.